Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Venezuelan-born veteran jazz pianist Edward Simon. He just released a new 2021 CD called Solo Live that happens to be his 15th album as a leader. It was recorded at Oakland's Piedmont Piano Company on his 50th birthday back in 2019. This musician has been at the center of the jazz scene for the past quarter century, shaping the music's evolution through a series of seminal ensembles and recordings. He was a young sideman in the bands led by Bobby Watson, Greg Osby, and Terence Blanchard. He's got some great mileage and stories to back it up. Enjoy.
Thanks for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz. I appreciate it.
Of course. Yes, my pleasure.
You've been on my radar for some time. I really enjoyed the double disc last year and the Solo Live. This has been quite refreshing and good during this pandemic time on planet Earth.
Yes.
With that being said, what does it feel like to be able to put out an album that you're going to actually be able to promote and do some live gigs with?
Well, I'll tell you, it's really very invigorating to play for a live audience again after all this time of quarantine. I could never really get used to playing streaming concerts where you're playing to an empty house, but there's some people in the other end somewhere listening, but you can't feel those people. Playing to a live audience is just such a joy and really a privilege. So I'm very, very much looking forward to performing solo piano to live audiences soon and promoting this record.
So is everything opening up on your end? Is your itinerary starting to open up and look like maybe it was kind of like the way it was back in March of 2020?
It's gradually moving in that direction. Yeah, it's not quite what it was like before the lockdown, but it's gradually moving in that direction. So it's very encouraging.
So, during this lockdown quarantine, everything obviously came to a grinding halt. There was a time of self-reflection for a lot of us. And I'm curious with you, what did you learn about yourself that maybe you didn't realize before that's going to make you stronger as you reemerge with a new album and hit the stage again?
I learned a few things. One of them was I had been wanting to put more focus on my solo piano playing for quite some time. I put more energy in that direction. And the quarantine provided an opportunity for me to do that. It was not a bad time to be a pianist during the pandemic because piano is an instrument that lends itself to solo performances, for one thing. And two, I was receiving a lot of invitations from presenters to record, either pre-record concerts at homes or at different venues that would later be broadcasted for festivals that were completely online or just a series of concerts that were online based. So it was really a good time to be a pianist, I have to say. Most of the instrumentalists that you would see doing these types of events were either pianists or guitarists for the most part. I mean, there were others as well, but piano and guitar are instruments that really lend themselves well for that kind of format. And with that came a time of learning about how to put together produce a home recording, learning how to use software, getting the right gear, how to stream a concert, and all of those things. Having a decent instrument to perform on, lighting. And frankly, there have been musicians who have been doing this before the pandemic, but I have always been a touring musician all my life. And for the first time, I had to really start to devote some energy learning about how you can actually produce a nice sounding recording or live streaming concert, either from home or from a venue near you, and how to incorporate that as part of your overall echoes, of performance offerings. I think that some element of that is going to remain when things open up. I'm already starting to see that a lot of the presenting venues are offering their concerts for both live audiences and streaming, and they each have their benefits. I mean, there's nothing ever will replace the experience of a live performance, both for the audience and the performer. Streaming does offer the opportunity to have your music be heard or viewed or seen by people, anywhere on the planet that is connected to the internet. And, in a way, nothing beats that as well. So it really does provide another set of opportunities for the artists and venues.
So you recorded this latest CD on your 50th birthday in 2019, and I think you've been at this for a long time. You're a testament to longevity. How do you continue to go with the pace you go and remain, evolving and relevant in the world of jazz?
That's an interesting question. I think the most important thing for any performing artist to stay thriving in the scene and and relevant, as you say, is to continuously cultivate, your curiosity. Okay? Just keep yourself curious about what's happening today and how to continue to respond to the things that are happening around you and adapt. I think adaptability is probably one of the biggest lessons we've learned from this pandemic. And, businesses, artists, everyone has had to learn how to pivot in some way. As an artist, if you can maintain that curiosity alive, you will always continue to grow and change with the time, because change is inevitable. So you have to go along with it, or else you will be left behind, I guess.
Absolutely. So let's go back to your beginnings in Venezuela and talk to me a little bit about how your path became music, and more specifically jazz.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm from Venezuela. I grew up there mostly listening or playing Latin American music, all of the various genres from the Caribbean, like salsa, bolero, cumbia, son, rumba, and also music from the southern countries south of Venezuela, like Argentina and Brazil. And I didn't really discover jazz until later. Well, I should say, around age 10 or 11. I guess that's not very late. I first heard traits of jazz through the music of bands like Iraquere, who is the Cuban band that mixes, Afro-Cuban music with jazz improvisation and even some classical music and folkloric Cuban music. So bands like that, and then later in New York, bands like Florida Apache was very influential in terms of how to combine both languages. But I discovered jazz in its purest form when I first heard a video recording of a celebration at the White House that had performances by Stan Getz Quartet and Dizzy Gillespie. And at the time, with Stan was Chick Corea and, I think it was the band with Chick and Lenny White, excuse me. But in this particular performance at the White House, Chick played with his trio with Miroslav and Roy Haynes. So it was really that first performance that I heard that really was the first time I heard jazz in its purest form, and that really opened my ears to it, and made me decide that that's a music I wanted to pursue.
So was it always a dream to come to America?
Not really. It was just that I had moved here first when I was 10 years old, because my sister was pursuing her college education, and my family, my mom didn't want for her to come on her own. So if my mom came along, it meant that myself and my little brother had to come as well. So we all moved here in '82 lived in Oklahoma actually for a couple of years. Then that was the first time that I ever had taken music lessons, formal music lessons, when I lived in Oklahoma. And then I moved back to my hometown, and my father really, supported my music studies and saw how much progress I had made in those 2 years. And really felt like, if I come from a small town in Venezuela, so if I had stayed there, he knew that I probably would not have done very much with my music. So he was the one that had a really strong vision and sent me to a high school of arts in Philadelphia to continue my music studies in high school. And I graduated high school in '86 and continued on to study music at the University of the Arts in Philadelphia and later the Manhattan School of Music. Even though I was a classical major at the time, I was already very clear that jazz was what I wanted to be playing. I was involved in the jazz ensembles at this university, at the school. So that's sort of how I ended up in the United States.
So, obviously the United States it's a hotbed of jazz activity. When you got here and you had the chance to see a live show, what was the first live show that you saw here that blew you away?
Wow, that's a really good question. I don't know if I can pinpoint the first live show that I might have seen here. I moved to Philadelphia when I was 15 to study at a high school of arts there. And I started attending local concerts by local artists. Philly is definitely a great jazz town. Some of the artists that I got to hear and later play with were Charles Fambrough, who moved back to Philadelphia. He's originally from that area and played with the Messengers and had moved back to Philly. I met him, and we both had similar interests, and so I started to play with him because he wanted to learn more about Latin music, and I was interested in learning about jazz and swing. So we started playing a lot together, and it was through him that I started to meet other artists like Bobby Watson, Kevin Eubanks, and Greg Osby, who would later hire me. But I can't pinpoint any specific one concert that was blew me away. I do remember the first time I heard, once again, Chick came through Philly with the Electric Band, and I got to go hear that concert in Philadelphia. I forgot the name of the venue now where they performed, but it was really, really, really incredible. Totally blew me away. I also remember hearing the Pat Metheny group live, and that also was a concert that had a tremendous impact on him, and his music has been very influential ever since.
So, every day you wake up, you're a professional musician, you get to create. What's the greatest part of this process for you?
There's a couple of points when it's really kind of highlight points in the process. I'm into everything from composing, writing, conceiving projects, to performing live music and recording, producing recordings. I enjoy all of those aspects of the creative process. Usually there's 2 points when it's really highlight for me. Is when the first time you get your music played by live musicians, when you're first rehearsing it if you have the great fortune of playing with great musicians, having your music played by great musicians is just such a joy and such a uplifting experience. It's really hard to describe. I remember the first time that I wrote an arrangement for a big band back in college, and they played it, and I was there at the rehearsal, and I was so excited. I had this nervous laugh. I could hardly stop laughing, and it was it was just so much joy contained inside. I didn't know any other way to let it out. But that's always a great part of the process for me is when you have your music. Compositions are like little babies that you're conceiving, you're nurturing through time, and the first time you get to actually hear it played by a live musician is just a tremendous joy. And then the other moment when it comes full circle is when you get to play it to a live audience, and when they and hearing how they respond to it. If they get it, they enjoy it as well, then that to me is like the circle is complete. So those 2 points are usually highlights for me.
So as the world wakes up and returns to live music, what do you hope we all collectively, audience and musician, realizes about this long time away from live events and entertainment?
I hope people will realize that, the arts, particularly the performing arts, it's something that we all really depend on to live a fuller, richer life and to be inspired by. And, for some of us, music is as important as food. It's a way to feed your soul. It talks directly to your soul, music. I hope that people will realize, and I think that they have after this quarantine time, how important it is for us to have great music and great art around us in a physical space where we can actually enjoy it and be part of the process, part of the experience.
So everyone has a perception or a version of who they think you are, your family, your friends, your fans, but ultimately you're the one that's living your life. You have a perception of you. Who do you think you are?
That's a really big question. When we ask that question, most people are going to, I think most of us, give an answer that really relates to all of the things that define us. Where we're born, our culture, our heritage, our name, of course, our jobs, and our families, and those are the things that define us in this physical realm. If we look deeper, if we're going to drop all of that away, that's a question that I'm continually looking to discover. What's left after all of that is no longer there, because all of that is continually changing. When all of that drops away, I don't know, what's left is probably just pure consciousness, and as I grow older, I want to try and be more and more in touch with that, because all of these other things, they change over time, and even though I see myself as a creative artist, and father and husband, I think first and foremost, I want to be a good human being and bring joy and happiness into other people's lives. So I think I see myself more as a messenger.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, Edward, man, it's great to catch up with you. Thank you for the music. Thank you for taking a minute out for the show, and good luck with everything as we move forward.
Yeah, I appreciate the time, Joe, and the same to you. I wish you much health and music and enjoyment.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest cats in Venezuela, Philadelphia, Oakland, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Edward for his time, energy, and cool. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to theneonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.